Emily Carter still remembers the exact sound the door made that night. Soft, careless, like someone opening a place that already belonged to them. And maybe that was the moment her world cracked. Because as she pushed the elevator button in the lobby of the shimmering Manhattan Tower, holding a warm Starbucks cup in one hand and a small bag of pastries in the other, she felt something strange pulling at her chest. A quiet warning. A whisper in the dark telling her that nothing inside her penthouse would ever be the same again. She had come home early. That almost never happened. A patient emergency had been transferred, the shift reorganized, and for once she wasn't walking home at midnight. She imagined surprising her husband, Mark. Maybe he would finally smile the way he used to. Maybe they could sit on the sofa, watch the skyline, and remember the softness they once had. She hoped, desperately, that the distance between them was just stress, not something deeper, not something deadly. But when she stepped out on the 32nd floor, she froze. Her apartment door was slightly open, just a crack. But that single crack felt like a scream. Emily's chest tightened. That wasn't normal. Mark was obsessive about locking the door. He checked it twice, sometimes 3 times. So why? The hallway was quiet, except for a faint sound drifting from inside. Music. Soft, romantic music. A song she hadn't heard in years, because Mark had said it felt too sentimental. So why was it playing now? And why did she hear laughter? A woman's laughter, floating out into the hallway like perfume spilled in the air. Her hand trembled as she pushed the door fully open. The lights were dim. Candles she didn't light flickered on the dining table. 2 wine glasses, a bottle of Cabernet she had been saving for their anniversary. And then she saw it, an unfamiliar high-heeled shoe lying carelessly near the sofa. A red heel. Bold. Confident. Nothing like Emily's quiet, simple style. She stepped further in, her pulse thundering. Her Starbucks cup slipped from her fingers, hitting the hardwood floor with a dull thud. And that sound, soft but final, seemed to announce her arrival. A voice giggled, a woman. Then another voice, Mark's, answered, low and warm in a way he hadn't spoken to Emily in months. And in that instant, Emily understood. Not because she saw them yet, but because she felt the truth punch the breath from her lungs. Her own home, her marriage, her sacrifices invaded, replaced, violated. Her knees almost buckled. Her heartbeat roared in her ears. She had imagined pain before, but this was a new kind of breaking. She stepped closer, gripping the doorframe to steady herself, and then she saw them. Mark, shirt unbuttoned, hair messy, smiling, and beside him, Chloe, young, blonde, sitting on the sofa, wearing one of his shirts. The room spun. Mark's eyes widened as he finally noticed Emily standing there. He jumped up, knocking over a wine glass. Chloe gasped, covering her mouth with her hand. Emily opened her lips to speak, but no words came. Only air. Only disbelief. And then, something inside her snapped. Her hand rose. Her voice trembled. And the night that would change all their lives forever began with one single step forward, and one decision she never thought she was capable of making. The air tightened as her heart prepared to choose a path beyond fear. And none of them saw what Emily was about to do next. Emily had always believed that marriages didn't collapse overnight. They cracked slowly, quietly, through the small things people ignored. But standing there in the dim light of her Manhattan apartment, watching Chloe scramble to cover herself with Mark's shirt, Emily realized that the cracks she'd sensed for months hadn't been cracks at all. Her home had already been split in 2 long before this night, and somehow she had missed every warning. She remembered the mornings when she rushed out for her 12-hour shifts, leaving Mark sipping espresso while scanning his MacBook Pro with a furrowed brow. She remembered how he barely looked up when she kissed his cheek. She remembered the nights he came home later and later, smelling of cologne that wasn't his. She had brushed it off, telling herself she was imagining things. After all, Mark had always said stress made him distant. And Emily, a nurse who saw suffering daily, was trained to understand. Maybe she had understood too much for too long. Now, as Mark stammered her name, Emily felt the weight of every sacrifice she'd made pressing against her chest. The missed holidays, the skipped vacations, the overtime shifts she accepted to help pay off Mark's business school loans. She had given him everything she had. She had believed in him when no one else did. And this scene in her living room was how he repaid her. Mark took a step toward her, hands raised like she was a frightened animal he needed to soothe. Emily, wait. This isn't what it looks like. The oldest, laziest lie in the world. It almost made her laugh. Chloe sat frozen on the sofa, cheeks flushed with humiliation. She wasn't the picture-perfect mistress Emily had imagined. She looked scared, young, and painfully unsure of her place now that the wife had appeared. Emily almost pitied her, almost. Emily didn't shout, she didn't cry. She stood perfectly still, her voice steady in a way that surprised even her. How long? Mark's jaw tightened. Emily, please don't do this in front of her. That tells me everything, Emily cut in. The truth was written all over his face. 3 months, maybe 6, maybe longer. Emily felt something inside her shift, a small, sharp realization. She wasn't weak for loving him. But he was weak for betraying someone who had never stopped standing beside him. She glanced at Chloe, whose eyes darted nervously toward the door. The girl was waiting for Mark to defend her, to claim her. But he said nothing. The silence between them was louder than any confession. Emily took a deep breath. In that moment, she understood her place in this broken triangle. And it was not the place of a woman begging to be chosen. Mark reached out again. Emily, please, let's talk calmly. We can fix this. No, she said softly. You already made your choice. But she wasn't prepared for what came next. Chloe suddenly stood, voice trembling. Emily, I didn't know he was married. He told me you two were separated. Emily blinked. Separated? Mark whipped his head toward Chloe. Chloe, don't. But it was too late. Emily felt her breath hitch, not from heartbreak, but from a deeper betrayal she hadn't even considered possible. If Mark had lied about something as enormous as their marriage being intact, what else had he been telling people? What stories had he spun to paint himself the victim and her the problem? And that single sentence was about to change everything Emily thought she knew. The words separated echoed in Emily's mind like a blow she never saw coming. She stared at Chloe, then at Mark, feeling the room tilt around her. For months she had blamed herself for every cold night, every missed dinner, every suspicious moment. Yet now she learned he had been telling another woman that their marriage was already broken. It wasn't just betrayal, it was erasure. Mark rewriting her existence to make space for his fantasy life. Mark stepped between them as if trying to block the truth from settling in the air. Chloe misspoke, he insisted, voice cracking. But Chloe looked at him with wide, wounded eyes, realizing she had been manipulated too. Emily felt no sympathy for Mark's panic. She saw only a man scrambling to protect himself, not the wife he had vowed to cherish. You told her we were separated, Emily said quietly. The room stilled. She wasn't yelling. She didn't need to. The calmness in her voice was sharper than any scream. Mark opened his mouth, searching for a lie that would sound gentle, believable, convenient. Nothing came. The silence exposed him like a spotlight. Chloe wrapped her arms around herself. He told me you two were living separate lives. He said you were always working, that you didn't love him anymore. Emily's jaw tightened. That was the cruelest twist. The hours she spent saving lives at the hospital, the overtime she took so Mark could invest in his career, had been twisted into ammunition against her. Emily felt something unfamiliar rise inside her. Not rage, but clarity. A cold, steady understanding that she had lost herself in a marriage where only one person was fighting to keep it alive. And it wasn't Mark. She stepped back, scanning the room, the candles, the wine, the carefully arranged evening. This wasn't a mistake. It was a rehearsal for the life he planned to live without her. Mark finally tried to touch her. Emily, please, let's go to the bedroom and talk. You're overwhelmed. The condescension sliced through her. She shook his hand off, and for the first time she saw a flicker of fear in his eyes. Not fear of losing her, but fear of losing control. That realization steadied her more than anything else. Both of you need to leave, Emily said. Her voice did not tremble. Chloe grabbed her shoes and hurried toward the door, but Mark hesitated, jaw tight, trying to salvage the narrative he had built. Emily, you're making a scene. She almost laughed. He still thought he had power. He still believed he could decide what story would be told. Emily stepped closer, lowering her voice. The scene already happened. You just didn't think I'd be in it. His face flushed. For once, he had no answer. Chloe slipped out the door, and Emily watched Mark realize he was suddenly alone in his performance. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She simply walked past him, toward the hallway lights, ready to reclaim her life. But as she reached for the door, something unexpected happened. The elderly neighbor across the hall, Mrs. Jenkins, stepped out, her eyes widening at the tension in the air. She had seen more than Emily realized. As she glanced from Emily to Mark, she pressed her lips together, signaling that the truth was already slipping beyond the apartment walls. Mark stiffened, sensing his polished image beginning to fracture. Emily met Mrs. Jenkins's steady gaze, and the woman gave her a quiet, supportive nod. It was the first moment Emily felt a glimmer of strength returning, and she knew something big was coming. Emily didn't sleep that night, not even for a moment. She sat on the edge of the bed, the same bed she had once believed held every promise of her future, staring at the skyline outside the window. Manhattan glittered like nothing bad could ever happen there, like people didn't betray each other in apartments high above the city streets. But inside her chest, everything hurt. Her heartbeat felt bruised, her breath shallow. She kept replaying Chloe's words, each one slicing deeper. He said you two were living separate lives. That was the part she couldn't shake. Mark hadn't just cheated. He had rewritten their marriage. He had reshaped her into a villain in a story she didn't even know existed. She wrapped her arms around herself, feeling small in a place she had worked so hard to make a home. At sunrise, she walked out to the kitchen. The shattered wine glass from last night still lay on the floor, surrounded by dried red stains like tiny wounds. Mark hadn't cleaned it, he hadn't texted, he hadn't checked on her. He had simply vanished into the morning, probably straight to the office near Wall Street, where he could hide behind spreadsheets and polished shoes and pretend nothing had happened. Emily picked up the glass pieces slowly, then paused when she noticed something on the counter. Mark's Rolex. He never forgot it. Ever. But last night, in the middle of panic, shame, and Chloe's confession, he must have set it down. She stared at it, realizing how symbolic it was. Mark never left anything behind, except her. She couldn't keep sitting in silence. Not anymore. She grabbed her phone and dialed Sarah, her best friend from college. Sarah answered in under 3 seconds. What's wrong? Emily didn't cry. She didn't have the strength left. Can you come? 20 minutes later, Sarah walked into the apartment wearing a dark blazer, hair in a tight bun, holding 2 coffees. She took one look at Emily's face and set the drinks down without another word. Tell me everything. Emily explained the candles, the wine, the shirt on Chloe, the lie about being separated. Each detail tightened Sarah's jaw. By the end, Sarah wasn't just angry, she was focused, sharp, the way she got in courtrooms. He told another woman you were separated, Sarah repeated. That changes everything legally. Emily blinked. Legally? Sarah nodded. It's proof of intent, proof he's been laying groundwork to push you out. Possibly, financially, absolutely emotionally. Emily felt her stomach drop. She had known the betrayal was deep, but not strategic. Not planned. Sarah placed a comforting hand on her arm. Listen, this isn't an affair. It's a setup. He's already rewriting the narrative to make you the problem, and if he's doing that, he's preparing for something bigger. Emily swallowed hard. Like what? Sarah didn't sugarcoat it. Like replacing you. The words landed like a punch. Emily felt her knees wobble and gripped the back of a chair to steady herself. He wouldn't, she started, then stopped. Of course he would. He already had. Sarah took a slow breath. You need to protect yourself, starting now, before he turns this into something you can't recover from. Emily felt a tremor run through her. For months she'd blamed herself for Mark's distance, for his coldness. Never once did she imagine he was building a life without her while still sleeping beside her. Sarah's voice softened. Emily, you can't stay here unprepared. This is the point where women lose everything if they keep hoping he'll change. Emily nodded slowly, the truth settling painfully into place. I don't even know where to start. You don't have to, Sarah said. I'll help you. Emily exhaled shakily, and for the first time since last night, she felt a thread of strength pulling through her spine. Sarah's words were calm but firm. But before anything else, we need proof. All of it. Emily's heartbeat quickened, and Sarah turned toward the door with a look that told Emily the real battle was just beginning. Emily felt as if she were moving underwater as she and Sarah stepped out into the hallway. Her mind was foggy, her body tired, but her instincts were waking up in a way they never had before. Last night she had discovered the betrayal. This morning she was discovering the strategy behind it. And now Sarah, the one person who always saw through the surface, was guiding her toward something Emily had never imagined she'd need: defense. "First," Sarah said firmly as they walked toward the elevator, "you need proof Mark brought Chloe here. Proof he did it more than once, and proof he's been telling people you two were separated." Emily's throat tightened. "How do we get that?" Sarah pressed the elevator button. "By treating this marriage like a crime scene." The doors opened. Emily stepped in, feeling her knees wobble again. They went down to the lobby. The glass walls were washed with morning light, and the doorman James stood at his desk. He straightened when he saw Emily, a concerned crease forming on his forehead. "Mrs. Carter, are you all right?" Emily opened her mouth, but Sarah placed a hand gently on her arm. A silent signal. "Let me handle this." Sarah smiled politely. "James, we need to ask you something sensitive. Strictly confidential." James lowered his voice. "Of course. Has Mr. Carter been bringing guests here?" Sarah asked. James hesitated. His eyes flicked to Emily, hesitation mixed with sympathy. That was the answer right there. Emily felt a stomach twist, but Sarah kept her voice calm. "It's important," she added. "You won't get in trouble for telling the truth." After a long pause, James exhaled slowly. "There's been a young woman, blonde, comes late, leaves early. Not often, but enough for people to notice." Emily closed her eyes, a tiny shatter inside her chest, though there wasn't much left to break. "Do you know her name?" Sarah asked. James nodded reluctantly. "Miss Chloe Miller." Sarah thanked him, and they stepped out onto the sidewalk. Manhattan traffic roared around them, but Emily barely heard it. "He really did it," Emily whispered. "He didn't care. He didn't even try to hide it." "He didn't need to hide it," Sarah replied, "because he assumed you'd never fight back." Emily felt her hands clench. They walked toward a small cafe across the street, the kind of place where Wall Street workers stopped for quick espresso. Sarah chose a corner table, away from the windows, and opened her briefcase. She pulled out a small notebook and clicked her Mont Blanc pen. "Listen carefully," she said. "Your husband is setting up a narrative that you two are already separated. That means he's preparing to divide assets in his favor." Emily looked down. "He knows everything is in his name. And that's exactly why we need evidence before he tightens the noose," Sarah replied. "We're going to build a timeline." Emily rubbed her temples. "I can't believe Mark is capable of this," Sarah murmured. "People are capable of anything when they think they won't be caught." Emily thought back to Chloe's words, the trembling voice saying she'd been told a different story. It wasn't just betrayal, it was manipulation, a level of deceit so cold that Emily felt chills up her arms. Sarah opened her phone and began listing tasks. "You'll start collecting screenshots, email records, calendar events, bank statements, anything suspicious, and the building's security cameras. James can help with that." Emily swallowed. "I don't know if I can do this." "You can," Sarah said softly. "Because you have to." Emily's eyes stung, not from heartbreak but from something sharper. Will. The first spark of it. Sarah leaned in, voice low. "One thing you need to understand. Mark doesn't think you're capable of defending yourself. He's counting on you to fall apart." Emily clenched her jaw. "Then he's wrong." But before Sarah could reply, her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at the screen and frowned. Emily felt her pulse quicken. "What is it?" Sarah slowly turned the phone so Emily could see. It was a text from an unknown number. But the message was clear. "You don't know the full story. Meet me. It's about Mark." Emily's breath caught, and the sender's name at the bottom made her blood run cold. It was Chloe. Emily stared at the phone screen, her heart thudding so loudly she could hear it over the cafe's chatter. Chloe. The last person she ever wanted to hear from. The last voice she thought she'd hear again after last night's explosion. Sarah leaned closer, her lawyer instincts instantly alert. "Do not go alone," Sarah said. She could be trying to protect herself, or protect Mark, or trap you into saying something that can be used against you. Emily swallowed. "Why would she want to talk to me?" "Guilt," Sarah replied. "Or fear. Or maybe she's realizing Mark lied to her too." Emily's breath shook. She couldn't imagine sitting face to face with the woman she had found wearing her husband's shirt. But something inside her, something deeper than anger, was curious. Chloe had looked broken last night, terrified when she realized Mark had misled her. And now she was reaching out. Sarah tapped her Mont Blanc pen on the table. Before we respond, we need to think. What would she gain from telling you the truth? And what could she reveal that Mark doesn't want you to know? Emily felt a chill. What if there's more? Sarah's expression turned sharp. There is always more when a man lies this easily, and if Chloe knows something that can help us legally, we need it. Emily stared at the text again. You don't know the full story. Meet me. It's about Mark, Sarah sighed. Fine, if you're going, I'm going with you. But before she could finish her sentence, Chloe texted again. Please, just you. I can't talk if someone else is there. The tension thickened. Sarah frowned. Classic manipulative setup, but she's scared, Something's off. Emily hesitated. She didn't want more secrets. She wanted truth, even if it shattered what little remained of her heart. After a moment she exhaled. I'll meet her, but you stay close, nearby. Just not at the table. Sarah reluctantly agreed. Fine, but I'll be watching. They left the cafe and walked 3 blocks to a small park near the East River. It was quieter, tucked between tall glass buildings. Emily's palms were sweating as she scanned the benches. Then she saw her. Chloe sat alone on a bench, wearing a simple black sweater instead of the stylish outfit she'd worn last night. Her makeup was smudged, her eyes red. She looked less like the confident mistress Emily had imagined, and more like a frightened girl who'd been used. Emily approached slowly. You wanted to talk. Chloe looked up. The guilt in her eyes was immediate, raw. Emily, I'm so sorry. Emily didn't sit. Just say what you came to say. Chloe took a shaky breath. Mark lied to me. About everything. He said you were barely speaking, that you slept in separate rooms, that you were only staying married for appearances. She looked down at her hands. He told me he was planning to move out soon. Emily felt her stomach knot. She had cooked for him, waited for him, begged for connection, while he was planning his exit. But that's not all, Chloe whispered. There's something worse. Emily's pulse quickened. Chloe looked up, tears sliding down her cheeks. Mark didn't just cheat, he's been hiding money. A lot of money. Accounts you don't know about. And he told me that once he left you, he'd be free to start fresh with someone who understood his lifestyle. Someone like me. Emily's breath caught. Hidden accounts? A financial betrayal on top of everything else? Chloe continued, voice cracking. He said he couldn't divorce you yet because he needed more time to move things around. He said you'd ruin him financially if you found out. Sarah, watching from a distance, stood up immediately, reading Emily's stunned expression. Chloe clutched her bag. I didn't know he was married. Not really. Not until last night, and when he tried to call me this morning, I didn't answer. I realized he's using everyone. Not just you. Emily felt the world tilt. Everything she feared was true, and more. Much more. She took a step back, her voice barely steady. Why tell me this? Chloe wiped her eyes. Because I don't want him to destroy you the way he almost destroyed me. Emily swallowed, throat tight. But before she could speak, Chloe whispered something that chilled her to her bones. And there's someone else he's been seeing. Someone you never expected. Emily's breath stopped. Not slowed. Stopped. The world around her seemed to freeze, the distant hum of traffic fading into a dull silence. She stared at Chloe, unable to process the words that had just shattered the fragile understanding she thought she had pieced together. Someone else? Another woman? It didn't seem possible. Betrayal already felt like an ocean swallowing her whole. Now she learned it had deeper, darker waters. Sarah took a few steps closer, reading Emily's face from afar, ready to intervene if Chloe escalated. But Emily lifted a hand slightly, signaling her to wait. She needed to hear this. She needed to know the truth, even if it sliced her open again. Emily's voice trembled. Who? Chloe swallowed hard, gripping the straps of her bag. I didn't believe it at first. I thought he was just flirting with her, being Mark. But then I saw texts, meetings, late-night calls. Her voice cracked. He wasn't just cheating on you, Emily. He was cheating on me, too. A sickening heaviness settled in Emily's chest. She forced herself to breathe. Tell me who it is. Chloe hesitated, fear flickering in her eyes. It's someone close to him. Someone who knows his schedule, his habits, his weaknesses. Another coworker? Emily asked. Chloe shook her head slowly. His financial advisor. Emily blinked, stunned. His advisor? You mean? Her name is Madison Hayes, Chloe whispered. She works at the investment firm he uses. I didn't know until I saw a notification pop up on his phone when he was in the shower. It said, "Same room as last time? Don't keep me waiting." I asked him who she was. He told me it was a client, but he forgot to hide the message thread. He's been seeing her longer than me. Emily felt her stomach twist sharply. Madison Hayes. She recognized the name. Mark had mentioned her before, briefly casually, saying she handled their portfolio and was excellent with high-net-worth clients. Emily never imagined that behind those professional compliments was another betrayal, deeper and more calculated than Chloe's involvement. How long? Emily's voice was thin, controlled only by the last strand of her restraint. Maybe a year, Chloe whispered. A year. A full year of secrets buried beneath Mark's polished suits, fake smiles, and late-night excuses. A year of lies whispered behind closed hotel doors. A year of Emily carrying the weight of their marriage alone, while he scattered his loyalty like dust. Emily sat heavily onto the bench, feeling the cold metal press through her coat. Her hands trembled in her lap. Chloe continued gently, "I'm telling you because he used me. The way he's using her, the way he's using you. He's trying to protect his assets before he leaves. He said once everything was in place, he'd break things off with you officially and move forward with his new life." Tears slipped down her cheeks. I was stupid enough to think that life included me. Emily's jaw clenched with a force she didn't know she still possessed. She wasn't just fighting betrayal anymore. She was fighting a man who had been constructing a future without her. Carefully, secretly, strategically. Sarah arrived at the bench, eyes sharp, posture rigid. "Emily, we need to go, now." Chloe stood quickly, frightened by Sarah's intensity. "I didn't mean to cause trouble. I thought you deserved the truth." Emily rose slowly, feeling something shift inside her. Not despair, not hopelessness, but something colder. Something stronger. A new kind of clarity. She looked Chloe in the eyes. "Thank you for telling me." Chloe nodded, tears falling freely. Sarah placed a protective hand on Emily's back. "Let's get out of here. We need a new plan." Emily inhaled deeply, letting the cold air fill her lungs. Someone else. A year-long affair. Hidden money. Lies woven into lies. The scale of the betrayal no longer crushed her. It fueled her. She straightened her shoulders, because now she wasn't simply reacting, she was preparing. And Mark had no idea that the woman he underestimated was about to become his biggest threat. Emily and Sarah walked briskly through the city, the cold Manhattan air hitting Emily's cheeks like needles. Sharp, awakening, purifying. The betrayal no longer felt like a wound bleeding out. It felt like a fire heating steel. And she was starting to understand that she wasn't broken. She was being forged. They reached Sarah's Brooklyn office, a quiet building tucked away from the rush of downtown. Inside, warm light glowed against the walls, and the faint scent of coffee lingered. Emily sank into a leather chair, the exhaustion of the past 24 hours settling deep in her bones. Sarah set down her briefcase, pulled out files, opened her laptop, and transformed instantly from best friend to attorney. "Emily," she said firmly, sitting across from her, "we're past the point of reacting. Now we strike first." Emily rubbed her arms, trying to steady her breath. "I don't want to destroy him. I just want the truth out. I want what's fair." Sarah gave a slow, controlled smile. "Truth and fairness are exactly what will destroy him." Emily looked up. "Mark built this web of lies over months," Sarah continued. "Hidden bank accounts, affairs, manipulating people around him, making you look like the distant spouse. This wasn't emotional weakness. This was a strategy. But now that we know Madison Hayes is involved, everything changes." Emily frowned. "Why does Madison matter so much?" Sarah leaned forward. "Because Madison works in finance. And that means she knows where money moves. If Mark was shifting assets illegally to keep them from you, she may have helped him, or at least witnessed it." She tapped her pen thoughtfully. "People like her don't risk their licenses for love. If we pressure her, she'll fold, which puts Mark in a corner." Emily's pulse quickened. She imagined Madison's polished appearance, her perfect suits, her professional smile. The thought that another woman, an educated, successful one, had knowingly been part of Mark's double life twisted like a knife. "So what do we do now?" Emily asked quietly. Sarah opened a folder. "We gather proof today." Emily watched as Sarah organized tasks like a battle plan. Request building security footage covering the last 6 months. Get financial statements, both personal and joint. Screenshot messages, emails, calendar entries. Contact a forensic accountant. Prepare for a quiet consultation with a divorce judge. Emily swallowed hard. This feels big. Bigger than anything I've ever handled. Sarah softened. And that's why we're doing it together. Mark counted on your kindness becoming your weakness. He never imagined it would become your weapon. Emily exhaled shakily, but she nodded. Sarah continued working, her pen dancing across paper. But Emily suddenly felt a wave of nausea, the emotional weight finally crashing over her. She pressed a hand to her forehead. Sarah noticed instantly. Hey, sit back, breathe. Emily slouched into the chair, eyes burning. I spent 10 years building a life with him. I thought we were partners. Sarah reached across the desk and squeezed her hand. You gave him loyalty. He gave you lies. That is not your failure. Emily blinked back tears. I don't even know who I am without him. Yes, you do, Sarah said softly. You're the woman who saves lives every day. You're the woman who keeps promises. You're the woman who walked into hell last night and walked out standing. She paused. And you're the woman who's about to reclaim everything he tried to take from you. Emily felt her breath settle, slow and deeper. Sarah stood and grabbed her coat. Let's take a break. You need food, fresh air, then we'll work. But as they stepped outside, Emily's phone buzzed. A new message. Not from Chloe, not from an unknown number, but from Mark. She froze. Sarah peered over her shoulder. The message read, We need to talk. Tonight. Don't do anything stupid. Emily's jaw tightened. She felt Sarah tense beside her. Sarah whispered, he knows you're onto him. Emily stared at the message, a cold clarity spreading through her. No, she said quietly. He knows he's losing control. She lifted her chin, fighting back the fear, because she wasn't the same woman she had been yesterday. Not even close. And Mark was about to learn exactly how much she had changed. Emily stared at Mark's message until the screen dimmed, her grip tightening around the phone. Don't do anything stupid. The words pulsed like a warning siren, condescending, controlling, and unmistakably panicked. Sarah leaned closer, her eyes narrowing. He's rattled, Sarah said. He thinks he can intimidate you back into silence. Emily shook her head slowly. Not anymore. They returned to Sarah's office and spent the next hour gathering everything they could. Emily dug through old emails, bank statements, travel records, anything that hinted at patterns she had once overlooked. It was painful, going through fragments of her life with Mark like she was dissecting a crime scene. But it was also liberating. For every truth uncovered, she felt a piece of herself return. At one point, she found an old anniversary photo, taken at the Plaza Hotel, where Mark had kissed her cheek, telling her she was his forever. She stared at it, realizing forever had been an illusion even then. She tucked the photo away, not in sadness, but in closure. By late afternoon, Sarah looked up from her laptop. We need one more thing before we confront him. We need a witness. Emily frowned. A witness? Someone he won't expect. Someone who can confirm his behavior. Someone he can't discredit. Emily blinked. Like who? Before Sarah could answer, there was a knock on the glass door of her office. Both women turned. Standing there, tired, nervous, but determined, was Mrs. Jenkins, the elderly neighbor from down the hallway. Emily's eyes widened. How did you? I saw you leaving this morning, Mrs. Jenkins said softly as she stepped inside. And I saw the look on your face. I've lived long enough to recognize that kind of hurt. She rested her hand on Emily's forearm. I didn't want to interfere, dear, but I thought you might need someone to tell the truth. Sarah glanced at Emily, then at Mrs. Thal. Jenkins, have you seen Mark with Chloe before? Mrs. Jenkins nodded, lips pursing. More than once. And I heard things too. Voices, laughter, arguments. I didn't want to assume anything, but, well, I suppose my instincts were right. Emily felt her throat tighten. The humiliation she had carried alone wasn't hers alone anymore. Someone else had seen it. Someone who cared. Sarah gently asked, Would you be willing to make a statement if needed? Mrs. Jenkins straightened. Absolutely. No man should treat his wife the way he treated her. Emily swallowed, overcome with gratitude. Thank you, she whispered. Mrs. Jenkins squeezed her hand. You deserve better, dear. Much better. After she left, Sarah leaned back, exhaling. That's it. We have everything we need to confront him tonight. Not with anger. With truth. Emily finished. Sarah nodded. Exactly. As evening approached, Emily returned to her apartment with Sarah by her side. The sun had dipped behind the skyline, casting long shadows along the hallway. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for the door, this time fully locked, as if Mark were trying to reclaim control, even through a doorknob. Inside, Mark was pacing the living room, tie loose, hair disheveled. He spun around when he heard the door open. "Emily," he said sharply, "we need to talk." Emily stepped inside slowly, controlled. "We will." Mark's eyes flicked to Sarah, irritation flashing. "Why is she here?" "Because I asked her to be," Emily replied. Mark scoffed. "You're blowing everything out of proportion. Last night was a mistake. You're upset. I get that. But you're not thinking clearly." Emily felt the familiar sting of his manipulation, but this time she didn't fold. "Actually," she said quietly, "I've never thought more clearly." Mark froze. She continued, "I know about the affairs, both of them, Chloe and Madison Hayes." His face drained of color. Emily took a step forward. "I know what you told them. I know the things you hid, the money you moved, the lies you crafted." Mark's voice cracked. "Emily, you don't understand?" "No," she cut in. "You don't understand. I'm done protecting you." He inhaled sharply, panic flickering across his expression. Emily held his gaze, steady, unflinching. "Tonight," she said softly, "is the last night you get to control the narrative." Mark's breath hitched. Because he knew, maybe for the first time, that she wasn't the same woman he had underestimated. And this time, she wasn't backing down. Emily stepped further into the living room, the soft glow of the skyline behind her casting long shadows across the hardwood floor. Mark stood perfectly still, like a man suddenly realizing the ground beneath him had cracked open. Sarah remained near the entryway, arms crossed, gaze sharp and unmovable. The pressure in the room thickened with every second. "Emily," Mark began, voice low, "you're listening to the wrong people. Chloe's unstable. She's emotional. You can't trust anything she says." Emily didn't blink. "Then why were her words the same as the evidence I found? The same as what Mrs. Jenkins saw? The same as your messages, your late-night calls, your transfers?" Mark's face tightened. "You went through my things? After you tore my marriage apart," Emily replied, her voice like a steady flame. "Yes, I did." Mark tugged at his collar, looking suddenly claustrophobic. "Okay, fine. I made mistakes. But you're talking about blowing up our life over nothing. We can fix this." "You always forgive too quickly, Emily. It's one of the things I depend on." That sentence hit like a punch. Depend on. Not cherish. Not value. Depend on. And suddenly everything in their marriage made perfect sense. Emily stepped closer. "I'm not your safety net anymore." Mark's lips parted, but no sound came out. "Let me be very clear," she said. "You brought your mistress into our home. You told another woman we were separated. You started hiding money. You built a secret life with someone else while I was working double shifts to support you. You don't get to stand here and blame me for finally seeing the truth." Mark's jaw twitched. "I didn't hide money. I moved funds for business reasons. You don't understand finance." "Perfect," Sarah cut in sharply. "Then you won't mind showing us the accounts?" Mark stiffened. "This is between me and my wife." "No," Emily said. "It stopped being between us the night you unlocked this door for someone else." Silence spread through the room, heavy and undeniable. Mark swallowed, anger flickering in his eyes. "So what? You want a divorce? Is that it?" Emily met his gaze, her heart steady for the first time in months. "I want freedom, I want truth, and I want everything I'm legally entitled to." He stared at her like she had spoken a language he couldn't understand. "You can't survive without me, Emily. You know that, right?" The arrogance, the delusion, the belief that she needed him to breathe. Emily took one long, grounding breath. "I have survived you," Mark faltered. Sarah opened her briefcase, pulling out a small stack of papers. "These are the preliminary filings. You'll be receiving the full petition within 48 hours. Mark's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" "Completely," Sarah answered. Mark turned back to Emily. "You're letting her manipulate you." Emily lifted her chin. "No, you manipulated me. For years. I'm just finally waking up." He laughed bitterly, pacing like a trapped animal. "You won't get the apartment or the savings. I'll make sure of that." Sarah smirked. "Not with the evidence we have, and certainly not with your neighbor willing to testify." Mark froze mid-step. "Neighbor?" Emily nodded. "Mrs. Jenkins saw everything. She's done watching you disrespect me." A crack formed in Mark's confidence. Visible, deep, irreversible. Emily felt strength surge through her. This is the last conversation we will ever have like this. Next time, it will be across a table, with lawyers. Mark's nostrils flared. You're ruining everything. Emily shook her head gently. No, you ruined everything. I'm rebuilding. Sarah touched Emily's arm. We're done here. Emily took in the apartment one last time, the place where she cooked, laughed, cried, loved, and slowly lost herself. The place Mark had turned into a stage for betrayal. She walked toward the door. But before stepping out, she turned back one final time. Mark, she said softly, you had a good woman, a loyal woman, and you threw her away for cheap excitement. That's on you. He stared, stunned, speechless. Emily opened the door, and as she left, she knew the next chapter wouldn't be defined by his betrayal, but by her rise. Emily didn't go back to the apartment that night. She couldn't. The thought of sleeping in the same space where Mark had whispered lies to other women made her skin crawl. Instead, she and Sarah drove to Sarah's brownstone in Brooklyn, a quiet, warm place filled with books, soft lamps, and the kind of safety Emily hadn't felt in months. As they settled inside, Sarah handed Emily a blanket and a cup of hot tea. You can stay here as long as you need, she said. Emily nodded gratefully. She sat on the couch, staring at the steam rising from her mug. Everything felt heavy, her body, her mind, her heart. The adrenaline that had carried her through the confrontation now faded, leaving exhaustion in its place. Sarah sat across from her. This next part is going to be hard, she warned gently. Once we file the divorce, Mark will panic. Men like him don't handle losing control well. Emily rubbed her hands together slowly. I'm not scared of him anymore. Sarah smiled softly. That's progress. But later, when the house fell quiet and the shadows deepened, the weight of the day finally pressed down. Emily lay awake on the pull-out couch, staring at the ceiling. The truth replayed in her mind like a cruel movie. Mark with Chloe, Mark with Madison, the lies, the manipulation, the hidden accounts. Her chest tightened. She shifted onto her side, pulling the blanket close. She wanted to be strong. She had been strong. But strength didn't erase pain. It only made space for it. At some point near midnight, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She hesitated before reaching for it. A message from Mark. Come home. We need to fix this before it gets worse. Emily exhaled shakily. The audacity. Even now, he acted like she was the problem, like she was the one who needed to correct her behavior. A second message arrived. If you don't come back, you'll regret it. Don't make this ugly. Her hands trembled, but not from fear, from anger, real, deep anger, the kind she had swallowed for years. Sarah must have heard the vibration because moments later she walked into the living room, still in her sweater and slacks. He's texting you? Emily handed her the phone. Sarah read the messages, her eyes turning cold. Good. This helps us. Emily blinked. Helps? It shows intimidation, threatening tone, manipulation. Sarah took a seat beside her. We document everything. With Emily leaned back against the cushion, breathing in slowly. I didn't think he'd lose it this quickly. He was always held together by ego, not integrity, Sarah replied. And ego cracks fast. Emily felt a small, humorless smile tug at her mouth. It's all starting to feel like the man I loved never existed. Sarah hesitated, then spoke softly. Maybe he didn't. Maybe you loved the version of him he showed you. The one he built to look impressive. But that doesn't mean your love was a mistake. It means his deception was. Emily's eyes burned. I'm so tired, Sarah. I know, Sarah squeezed her hand, but you're not alone. They sat in silence for several minutes. Emily finally closed her eyes and allowed herself to breathe deeper, steadier. The night outside was peaceful, the kind of quiet she never experienced in her penthouse overlooking the city. Eventually, Sarah stood. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we meet with the forensic accountant, and we'll see what Mark's been hiding. Emily nodded. Sarah turned off the lamp and walked back toward her room. Emily stayed still, listening to the faint sounds of Brooklyn nightlife drifting through the window. She realized, for the first time in a long time, that she felt safe. Not because Mark wasn't there, but because she wasn't there. She rolled onto her back, letting the exhaustion finally wash over her. Just before sleep pulled her under, she whispered into the quiet room, mostly to herself, I'm going to win this. She didn't mean revenge. She meant her life back. And deep down, she knew tomorrow would reveal something even bigger. something Mark never expected her to uncover. Morning light filtered through Sarah's living room windows, casting soft amber stripes across the couch where Emily slept. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then everything came rushing back. The betrayal, the confrontation, the text messages dripping with Mark's arrogance. She sat up slowly, pressing a hand to her forehead. Sarah walked in carrying 2 coffees. "Morning," she said gently. "You look slightly more human than last night." Emily managed a small smile. "I'm trying." Sarah handed her a cup. "Good, because today is important." Emily nodded, though tension coiled in her stomach. She had agreed to meet with a forensic accountant, someone who specialized in uncovering hidden money. Just saying the phrase, hidden money, made her chest tighten. She still couldn't believe Mark had gone that far. After breakfast, they headed to a sleek office building near downtown Brooklyn. The elevator ride felt strangely quiet, as though the walls themselves understood the seriousness of what they were about to do. On the 14th floor, they met Daniel Pierce, a calm-looking man in his late 50s with silver hair and kind eyes. He shook Emily's hand warmly. "I read the summary Sarah sent," he said. "I'm very sorry you're going through this, but I'll tell you now, if something is hidden, we'll find it." Emily swallowed hard. "Thank you." They sat around a large table. Sarah spread out folders, emails, receipts, and financial statements. Daniel adjusted his glasses and began sorting through everything with meticulous care. After several minutes of scanning documents, he frowned. "What is it?" Sarah asked. Daniel turned a page. "Your husband has multiple transfers going to an account ending in 4821. Do you recognize that number?" Emily shook her head. "No, we only had 2 joint accounts and 1 credit card." Daniel nodded. "Then this may be something he didn't disclose." He kept digging. "And there are monthly payments labeled consulting services. The amounts are irregular. $3,000 one month, $9,800 the next." Sarah immediately stiffened. "He's siphoning marital funds." Daniel nodded. "Yes, and there's more." He opened another file. "Large cash withdrawals, a few transfers to a brokerage account that isn't in either of your names." Emily felt dizziness creeping in. He was preparing to leave me financially stranded." Sarah rested a hand on Emily's arm. "Not anymore," Daniel continued, "but the strangest thing is here." He pointed to a date. 3 weeks ago, there was a transaction labeled property retainer. Emily blinked. "Property? What kind of property?" Daniel raised his brows. "That's what we need to find out. It appears your husband may have put down a deposit on another residence." Emily felt her heart stop. "A new home?" she whispered. "For who?" Daniel and Sarah exchanged a grim look. "For the life he was planning without you," Sarah said softly. Emily covered her mouth with her hand. 1,000 memories flashed. Nights he came home smelling unfamiliar, sudden business trips, days he claimed he needed space. All the while, he had been building a future she wasn't a part of. Her stomach churned. Daniel kept checking. This retainer was paid through the same financial advisor, Madison Hayes. Emily's hands curled into fists. Madison wasn't just a mistress. She was a collaborator. Sarah leaned back. "This is better than we hoped for. Hidden accounts, concealed property, financial infidelity. Emily, this gives us power." Emily shook her head, overwhelmed. "I don't want power. I want justice." "And that," Daniel said gently, "is exactly what this will give you." Emily breathed in slowly. "So, what now?" Daniel slid the documents into a folder. "Now we subpoena Madison, and once she realizes she can lose her license, she'll talk. Mark won't be able to hide behind her anymore." Emily closed her eyes, trying to steady herself. Everything she thought she knew about her marriage kept unraveling, thread by thread. But there was strength in knowing, strength in seeing the truth clearly, without the fog of hope. Then Sarah's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, and her eyes widened. "What is it?" Emily asked. Sarah slowly turned the phone toward her. It was a news alert. Mark Carter named in financial misconduct investigation. Emily's breath caught. "Sarah," she whispered, trembling, "what does that mean?" Sarah exhaled hard. "It means he's in trouble," she said, "and we're about to learn just how deep this goes." And somewhere inside her, Emily realized this wasn't just divorce anymore. It was exposure. Emily stared at the news alert, her pulse roaring in her ears. The words felt unreal, like she was reading about a stranger. Except the name on the screen was her husband's. Financial misconduct investigation. The kind of headline that ruined careers overnight. The kind that didn't go away. Sarah grabbed the phone, scanning the article. It's vague. They're not naming specifics yet, just that several senior employees at Mark's firm are being reviewed for suspicious transfers. Daniel leaned in. If Mark moved money illegally, or helped someone else do it, it explains the hidden accounts. He paused. And it explains his panic. Emily felt her throat tighten. Do you think this has anything to do with the funds we found? Sarah nodded slowly. Very possible. He could have been shifting client money, not just marital assets. Emily's stomach dropped. Betrayal was one thing. Crime was another. She sat back in her chair, pressing a hand to her mouth. I didn't think he was capable of this. Sarah murmured. People who lie easily at home lie easily at work. Daniel folded his hands. We need to stay ahead of this. If the investigation widens, anything he tried to hide could come out, and that works in your favor. Emily shook her head, overwhelmed. I don't want his career destroyed. Sarah gave her a steady look. Emily, he destroyed your marriage. Your job is not to save his reputation. Your job is to save yourself. Emily swallowed, but she nodded. She knew Sarah was right. Still, a bitter ache burned behind her ribs. She had spent years protecting him, defending him, comforting him, believing in him. It was strange how the reflex to protect him hadn't fully died. Daniel cleared his throat gently. There's one angle we need to consider. If Madison was involved in the misconduct, she'll break. Fast. She won't protect him. Emily felt a chill. So she might turn on him? She will, Daniel said with certainty, to save herself. Sarah added, and when she does, Mark will be completely exposed, legally, financially, even publicly. Emily exhaled slowly. And what do we do in the meantime? We gather everything, Sarah said, and we prepare for his next move. They returned to Sarah's house, where the air felt tense with unspoken questions. Emily sat on the couch, gripping a pillow in her lap. It scared her that she didn't fully know the man she had lived with for 10 years. It scared her even more that he might be involved in something far darker than infidelity. As she stared at the floor, a memory surfaced. Mark sitting on their terrace last summer, drinking expensive whiskey, staring out at the skyline. She had asked him what was wrong. He had told her he was under pressure, that his job was demanding, that he felt trapped. She remembered trying to comfort him, rubbing his shoulders, telling him things would get better. Had that been guilt? Or the weight of something illegal? She didn't know anymore. Sarah stepped into the room. You need to hear this, she said, holding her phone out. Emily tensed. What now? Madison posted something. Sarah handed her the phone. It was an Instagram story, just a black background with white text. Some people shouldn't pretend to be innocent. The truth always comes out. Emily stared, stunned. Is she talking about Mark? Most likely, Sarah said. She's nervous. That's good. Emily shook her head slowly. Everything is falling apart? No, Sarah corrected. Everything is being revealed. Emily set the phone down and leaned back, breathing hard. This wasn't just a marriage, she whispered. It was a web. And webs only work, Sarah replied, until someone touches the wrong strand. Emily closed her eyes, letting that sink in. So what's the next step? She asked. Sarah sat beside her. We prepare for the investigation to widen. His firm will interview clients and partners. They'll dig into financial advisors. They'll question transfers. Emily swallowed. Will they call me? Maybe, Sarah said. And you'll tell the truth. Emily nodded, but before Sarah could say more, the front door buzzer rang, long, insistent, impatient. Sarah frowned. Who? Emily's heart slammed against her ribs. Sarah went to the intercom. Who is it? A voice answered, low and angry. Open the door, Sarah. I know she's there. It was Mark. Emily froze. Sarah's eyes flashed with warning. He sounds desperate. And desperation, Emily realized, was when Mark was most dangerous, and nothing in his voice suggested he had come to apologize. Sarah didn't move. Emily didn't breathe. Mark's voice crackled through the intercom again. Hard, sharp, threaded with anger he wasn't trying to hide. Open the door, Sarah. I'm not playing games. Emily's chest tightened. She glanced at Sarah, whose jaw was clenched, her mind already calculating options. Sarah pressed the intercom button calmly. Mark, this isn't the time. You need to leave. No, Mark snapped. Emily needs to hear what I have to say, and she's not answering her phone. Emily whispered. He sounds unstable. Sarah nodded. He's spiraling. The investigation must have blindsided him. The intercom buzzed again, 3 sharp presses. "I'm not leaving," Mark growled. "Emily, if you're in there, come out and talk to me like an adult." Emily felt her stomach turn. She'd never heard him like this, cornered, frantic, aggressive. His polished Wall Street composure was gone. She stood shakily, but Sarah gently pushed her shoulder. "Sit down. I'm handling this." Emily sank back onto the couch, heart pounding. Sarah pressed the button again. "Mark, you're not coming in. This is legal territory now. Anything you say needs to go through counsel." "Don't talk to me like I'm some criminal," he barked. "I know what you're doing. I know you're turning Emily against me." Sarah's eyes flashed. Emily saw the truth. "I'm simply helping her protect herself." "You're poisoning her mind," Mark snarled. Emily flinched at the familiar accusation. How many times had he blamed her emotions on someone else? On her job? On stress? On anything but his own actions? Sarah kept her voice level. "You should leave before you make this worse for yourself." Silence, then heavy breathing. Finally, Mark spoke again, lower, more dangerous. "If you don't open the door, I'll come back with someone who can make you." Emily's blood ran cold. Sarah's expression hardened like stone. "If you return here, I will call the police and file a harassment report. And trust me, the last thing you need right now is more legal trouble." Another silence. Then, footsteps. Angry, stubborn footsteps heading toward the building exit. Emily released a long, shaking exhale. "I can't believe he said that. I've never heard him sound so cornered," Sarah finished. "He's losing control of the narrative, and men like him lash out when that happens." Emily nodded slowly, hands trembling. "He's not thinking clearly. That scares me." Sarah sat beside her. "Listen to me. You are safe here. He can't get into this building without permission. And after tonight, I want you to file for a temporary restraining order." Emily blinked, startled. "A restraining order?" "Yes," Sarah said firmly. "Threatening to come back with someone who can make you is intimidation. And with the investigation swirling around him, he's unpredictable." Emily pressed a hand to her chest, trying to calm her racing heart. "I don't recognize him anymore," Sarah replied softly. "This is who he's been. You're just seeing it clearly for the first time." Emily felt tears burn behind her eyes, not for the marriage ending, but for finally understanding the truth she had avoided for too long. After a few minutes, Sarah checked the security feed on her phone. "He's gone." Emily sagged with relief. Sarah squeezed her hand. "Good news is his behavior tonight only strengthens your case. Judges take intimidation seriously." Emily nodded. I didn't expect him to unravel this fast." Sarah sighed. "When secrets collapse, they collapse all at once." Emily leaned back, exhausted. "What if he does something reckless?" "He won't," Sarah assured her. "He's scared of consequences, and he knows we have evidence." Emily took a deep breath. The fear ebbed, replaced by something steadier, a rising resolve. She straightened. "What's next?" Sarah smiled faintly. "Next, we finalize the filings. And then, when he least expects it, we take this to court." Emily lifted her chin, strength returning to her spine. Because tonight proved something she hadn't fully believed until now. Mark was no longer the man with power. And tomorrow, he would realize just how much of that power he had already lost. Emily woke up the next morning with a hollow ache behind her ribs. The kind that comes after a storm, not fear anymore, but the residue of something heavy finally cracking open. She dressed slowly, breathing deeply, reminding herself that today wasn't about grief. Today was about action. Sarah had already brewed coffee. She handed Emily a cup. "We file everything this afternoon," she said. "But before that, we need one more piece. We need Madison." Emily's stomach tightened. "You think she'll talk?" "Oh, she'll talk," Sarah said confidently. "Women like Madison protect their licenses, not their lovers." They headed into Manhattan, moving through the sharp morning air, the city buzzing with commuters and distant sirens. Emily felt like she was walking in two worlds, one where she had once been Mark's devoted wife, and another where she was preparing to dismantle the lies he built around her. Their destination was a high-rise near Wall Street, where Madison's investment firm operated. The lobby gleamed with marble floors and chrome accents. People in tailored suits drifted past, oblivious to the emotional warfare happening inside Emily's chest. They checked in at the front desk and were told Madison could meet them in a conference room. Emily's fingers tightened around her bag. Sarah squeezed her shoulder. Remember, she's not your enemy. She's a witness. They entered the conference room. A few minutes later, the door opened, and Madison Hayes walked in. She was exactly as Emily remembered, polished, composed, wearing a crisp navy suit that matched the sleek severity of her expression. But when her eyes landed on Emily, something flickered. Shame, panic, maybe both. "Emily," Madison said quietly, "I wasn't expecting." "You were expecting Mark." Sarah cut in before she could finish. Madison blinked, thrown off balance. "No, Please," Sarah said, gesturing to a chair. "Sit." Madison sat slowly, crossing her legs, clasping her hands in front of her. Emily watched her carefully, trying to reconcile the image of this polished professional with the woman texting her husband in hotel rooms. Madison cleared her throat. "Look, I didn't know you were still together." Emily felt anger spark, but she swallowed it. "You knew he was married." Madison dropped her gaze. "Yes, but he said it was ending, that you were staying together for financial reasons, that you weren't emotionally connected anymore." Emily exhaled through her nose. "He lied to you." Madison nodded. "Apparently." Sarah opened a folder. "We're not here for apologies. We're here for the truth. And I'm going to be blunt. Mark is under investigation, and if you helped him hide money, you could face charges." Madison's face drained of color. She sat straighter. "I didn't know the transfers were illegal. But you processed them," Sarah said, "which means you're involved, whether you like it or not." Madison swallowed hard. "What do you want from me?" Sarah leaned in. "Everything." Madison hesitated, torn between loyalty and self-preservation. But self-preservation won. She opened her bag, pulled out her tablet, and unlocked it. "Fine, I'll show you what I have, but I want immunity if this goes further." "We're not prosecutors," Sarah said, "but cooperation helps your case." Madison tapped the screen. Charts, statements, and wire transfers appeared. "This is the account ending in 4821, she explained. "Mark said it was for business expansion, but now I see it wasn't. He also asked me to move funds into a secondary property retainer. I didn't question it because he said he was preparing for a separation." Emily felt her mouth go dry. "Where is the property?" Madison clicked another file. A Manhattan address appeared. A luxury condo in Tribeca. Emily stiffened. Tribeca. The neighborhood Mark always said was better suited for a fresh start. The one he claimed was too expensive for us. Madison hesitated before speaking. He planned to move there, with me." Emily inhaled sharply, but what surprised her was not the pain. It was the relief, because now she saw Mark clearly, not as the man she had loved, but as the man he truly was. Selfish, reckless, and incapable of honesty. Madison wiped her eyes. "I'm sorry, Emily. Truly, he lied to both of us." Emily nodded slowly. "Yes, he did." Sarah closed the folder with finality. "Thank you, Madison. We'll be in touch." Madison rose and left quickly, heels clicking down the hallway like a retreating confession. Emily stood, grounding herself with a deep breath. Sarah looked at her. "You okay?" Emily straightened. "Yes, more than okay. Because today, she hadn't confronted a mistress. She had confronted a lie. And now she knew exactly how to bring Mark's entire web down, piece by piece." Emily and Sarah left the building in silence, stepping out into the cool Manhattan afternoon. The city moved around them in rapid motion, taxis honking, businessmen power-walking, the rumble of subway lines beneath their feet, but Emily felt strangely still, almost calm, like the eye of a storm. They walked several blocks before Sarah finally spoke. "That went better than expected." Emily exhaled long and steady. She really loved him. Sarah glanced over. "Yes, and that's why she broke so quickly. Women betrayed by the same man often understand each other more than they expect." Emily nodded. There was a quiet truth in that. They reached a quiet cafe tucked between two boutiques, warm lights, soft jazz, a place that smelled of cinnamon and espresso. Sarah insisted they take a seat. "You need food, and we need a plan." Emily ordered tea, though her hands were too unsteady to drink it. Sarah pulled out her legal pad. "Here's where we are," she began. "Thanks to Madison, we have documented proof of hidden accounts, attempted property acquisition, unauthorized transfers, possible financial misconduct, a timeline of his affairs." She looked up. "This is enough to destroy Mark both legally and professionally." Emily nodded but didn't speak. Sarah paused. "What are you thinking?" Emily stared out the window, watching people rush past. "I'm thinking, he never planned to stay with me. Not for a long time. I was just a placeholder, a convenience. Sarah leaned forward. Emily, you weren't a placeholder. You were a foundation. He built his stability on you, then walked away the moment he thought he didn't need you. Emily swallowed hard. Then he tried to erase me. Sarah's eyes softened. And he failed. Emily finally sipped her tea, letting the warmth ground her. The truth was settling in her bones in a way that no longer hurt. It clarified. Suddenly, Sarah's phone buzzed. She checked it, frowned, and immediately turned the screen toward Emily. A text from an unknown number. You don't know what you're dealing with. Mark isn't done. Emily's breath hitched. Is that a threat? Sarah didn't answer right away. The timing is suspicious. Either someone from Mark's circle knows what we're doing, or Mark himself is getting messier. Emily felt a twinge of fear. Do you think he's capable of doing something reckless? Sarah's expression was unreadable. Desperate men do desperate things. Emily set the cup down. Her hand trembled slightly. So what do? We finish the filings today, Sarah said. Then we deliver a cease and desist letter. After that, we put distance between you and him. Physical, legal, emotional, everything. Emily nodded. Okay. They returned to Sarah's brownstone to finalize documents. Emily signed papers with a calmness she didn't expect. Each signature felt like severing another chain she hadn't realized she was wearing. But around evening, as they prepared to send the formal notice to Mark's attorney, the doorbell rang. Sarah stiffened. Stay here. Emily's pulse spiked. Sarah walked to the door, peered through the peephole, then visibly relaxed. It's Daniel. Emily let out a breath. Sarah opened the door, and Daniel stepped in, holding a folder. Sorry to drop in unannounced, he said, but you need to see this. Sarah motioned him inside quickly. Daniel laid the folder on the table and opened it. I dug deeper into the transfers, the ones from the 4821 account. Emily leaned closer. Daniel tapped a page. These weren't just personal transfers. Some were routed through shell accounts. If Mark is part of a larger misconduct scheme, this could explode. Emily felt her stomach twist. Meaning? Daniel looked at her gravely. Meaning he's not just in trouble with you. He could be facing federal charges. Emily froze. Federal charges? Sarah exhaled sharply. This changes everything. Emily's breathing grew shallow. If he's being investigated federally, will he try to use me? Blame me? Daniel shook his head. He can't. The timeline clears you, but he's gonna panic harder. Emily pressed a hand to her chest. The thought terrified her, but another, stronger emotion rose beneath it. He couldn't control her anymore. Sarah spoke firmly. Tomorrow we file. No delays. After that, Mark can scream, threaten, manipulate. It won't matter. Emily nodded slowly. And the truth? Sarah smiled faintly. The truth will do what it always does. Rise. Emily inhaled deeply, letting the strength settle inside her. She wasn't the frightened woman who walked into her apartment that night. She wasn't the wife begging for answers. She wasn't the victim of Mark's betrayal anymore. She was the woman who would take back everything he tried to steal. And for the first time, she believed she could. Emily didn't sleep at all that night. She lay awake in the quiet guest room of Sarah's brownstone, staring at the ceiling as shadows shifted across the walls. Every few minutes, her mind replayed Daniel's words. Federal charges. The phrase felt too big, too heavy, like it belonged in someone else's life, not hers. But this was her reality now, one she never asked for, one Mark created and expected her to drown in. By sunrise, she had made a decision. She would not drown. She rose, showered, and dressed with steady hands. For once, she didn't feel like a woman piecing herself together after devastation. She felt like a woman preparing for battle. When she walked into the kitchen, Sarah glanced up from her laptop and nodded approvingly. You ready? Sarah asked. Emily inhaled deeply. Yes. They headed to the courthouse just after 9. The building stood tall, imposing, with marble columns and polished stone that seemed to echo every footstep. Emily's heart pounded as they approached the security checkpoint. She had never imagined she would be here. Not for herself. Sarah guided her to a quiet corner where the divorce clerk's office waited behind glass windows. Papers were reviewed, stamped, notarized. Emily watched her own name appear on official documents that would sever a decade of marriage. There was grief in it, but also freedom. Heavy, beautiful freedom. When the clerk handed her the final file, Emily felt a rush of breath leave her chest. It was done. The petition was officially filed. Sarah touched her arm. "You're stronger than you think." Emily nodded, blinking away tears she didn't expect. "Thank you for getting me here." "We're not done," Sarah reminded her. "Next step is exposing the financial misconduct, and Mark won't go quietly." Emily swallowed. "I know." They walked outside, the cold air biting at their cheeks. As they neared the curb, Emily's phone buzzed with a notification. She expected another threat from Mark, but it wasn't him. It was Chloe. A simple text. "Please call me. Something happened." Emily's pulse quickened. She stepped aside, dialing Chloe immediately. The call connected within seconds. "Emily?" Chloe's voice shook. "You need to know. Mark came to my building last night." Emily's stomach dropped. "What? Why?" "He was furious," Chloe whispered. "He said you were turning people against him. He kept demanding to know if I talked to you. I didn't say anything, but he kept yelling. The building security had to escort him out." Emily pressed a hand to her forehead. "I'm so sorry he dragged you into this." "No," Chloe said firmly. "I dragged myself in. I'm just glad security was there. But Emily, he's unraveling." Emily glanced at Sarah, who narrowed her eyes. "Did he threaten you?" Emily asked. A pause. "Yes," Chloe whispered. "He said if I betrayed him, I'd regret it." Emily's breath caught. "Chloe, I'm okay," she insisted. "But be careful. He isn't thinking straight." Emily ended the call, shaken. Sarah spoke quietly. "This confirms what I feared. He's spiraling, and he might lash out again." Emily steadied herself. "What do we do?" "We stay ahead of him," Sarah answered. "Legally, strategically, and physically. No being alone for a while." Emily nodded slowly. She wasn't afraid. She was alert. They returned to Sarah's car, but as Emily reached for the door handle, she noticed something across the street. A black Mercedes, the engine running, windows tinted, parked perfectly parallel to their position. Emily froze. "Sarah, look." Sarah followed her gaze, her expression hardening instantly. "Stay behind me." The driver's window rolled down, just an inch, enough for Emily to see the shadow of a man inside. She couldn't see his full face, but she recognized the shape, the posture, the tension. "Mark." Her breath caught. "He's watching us." Sarah stepped forward slightly, shielding Emily. "He's trying to intimidate you. Don't let him see fear." Emily straightened, shoulders back, chin lifted. For years, she had shrunk herself to keep peace. Not anymore. She met Mark's shadowed gaze through the tinted window. She didn't blink. She didn't flinch. And after a long, tense moment, the Mercedes pulled away, fast, weaving into traffic like a man fleeing the consequences he created. Emily exhaled shakily. "This isn't over." Sarah nodded. "No, it's not." But Emily wasn't the same woman she had been yesterday. And for the first time, Mark seemed to realize it. Emily and Sarah drove back to Brooklyn in tense silence, both aware that Mark's appearance in the Mercedes wasn't just intimidation. It was a warning. Emily stared out the window, watching the city blur past, her fingers twisting nervously in her lap. She couldn't shake the image of that dark car idling across the street, of Mark's rigid silhouette lurking behind the tinted glass. It felt like a message in itself. He was losing control. And in losing control, he was becoming unpredictable. Yet beneath the fear rising in her chest, something stronger grew: resolve. She refused to let him dictate her life any longer. When they reached Sarah's brownstone, Daniel was already there, pacing the living room with a folder in hand. "I ran another check," he said as they walked in. "There's movement on the hidden account. Large withdrawals." Emily felt her stomach turn. "He's moving money again?" Daniel nodded. "Big amounts, fast. He's panicking and clearing whatever he can before the freeze hits." Sarah rubbed her temples. "He knows the investigation is tightening." Emily sank onto the couch, heart hammering. "Is he trying to disappear funds?" Daniel hesitated, then answered quietly. "Or disappear himself." Emily went cold. "What does that mean?" Daniel looked grim. "When people face potential charges, some run, some hide assets offshore, some try to pin everything on someone else." Sarah stiffened. "Someone like Emily?" Daniel nodded reluctantly. He could claim she knew about the accounts or had access. Emily's body tensed. "But that's a lie." "Yes," Daniel said, "but a desperate man may not care about truth." Emily pressed a trembling hand to her forehead. "He's already rewriting my marriage. Why not rewrite the finances too?" Sarah knelt in front of her. "That's why we're acting quickly. We document everything. We build the case before he twists it." Emily nodded, swallowing hard. "Okay, I'll do whatever it takes." Just then, Emily's phone buzzed again. She flinched, expecting another threat from Mark, but it wasn't him. It was a voicemail, an unfamiliar number. Emily hesitated, then put it on speaker. A woman's voice played through the room, shaking, breathless. "Emily, my name is Elaine Turner. I work at Mark's firm. You don't know me, but I think you need to hear something. Mark's been talking about you, about the investigation. He said he had a plan if things went wrong." Emily's chest tightened painfully. The voicemail continued. "Please be careful. He isn't who you think he is, and he's running out of options." The message ended abruptly. Sarah stared at the phone. "Who the hell is Elaine Turner?" Daniel answered. "Compliance officer, someone who would know if Mark was under internal review." Emily whispered. "A plan. What does that mean?" Daniel exhaled. "Either shifting blame or using someone as a shield." Emily's breath hitched. "Me." Sarah stood quickly. "We need to get ahead of this before he tries anything." Emily pressed her palms together, grounding herself. "What do we do?" Daniel handed her a folder. "We prepare a sworn statement documenting everything, from the affairs to the hidden accounts to the threats. If he makes a move, this protects you." Emily opened the folder with trembling fingers. Page after page outlined her truth, the truth Mark tried to bury beneath lies, charm, and manipulation. Reading it felt strange, almost surreal. This wasn't just a divorce anymore. It was a dismantling of a man she had once loved, a man she no longer recognized. She closed the folder, breath steadying. "I'll sign it," she said. "All of it." Sarah nodded. "Good. We file it tonight." But before they could move, the doorbell rang. 3 sharp, rapid chimes that cut through the house like a blade. Emily froze. Sarah exchanged a tense look with Daniel. Emily whispered, "Who is that?" Daniel stepped closer to the hallway. And as Sarah approached the door, they all felt it. Something on the other side waiting to break the night open. Sarah approached the door cautiously, her heels silent on the hardwood floor. Emily's heart thudded so loudly she thought the entire brownstone could hear it. Daniel moved beside Sarah, motioning for Emily to stay back. The doorbell rang again, insistent, urgent, demanding. Sarah checked the peephole. Her shoulders dropped in visible relief. "It's not Mark," she whispered. "It's the police." Emily's breath caught. "The police?" Sarah opened the door halfway. 2 officers stood on the porch, their jackets marked NYPD, their expressions sober. "Good evening," the taller one said. "We're looking for Emily Carter." Emily stepped into view, pulse racing. "I'm Emily," the officer nodded. "Ma'am, we need to speak with you about an incident involving your husband, Mark Carter." Emily's knees weakened. Sarah grabbed her arm just in time. "What happened?" Daniel asked quickly. The officer opened a small notebook. "Earlier tonight, Mr. Carter showed up at the residence of a woman named Chloe Miller. He was agitated, yelling, and attempting to force his way into the building. Security reported the disturbance. When officers arrived, he fled the scene." Emily felt a cold wave pass through her. "Is she okay?" "She's safe," the officer said. "But she expressed concern for your safety. She believes Mr. Carter may try to approach you again." Sarah spoke firmly. "He already has. He followed us earlier today." The officer nodded, as if that confirmed something he had already suspected. "Then we strongly advise filing for a temporary restraining order immediately." Daniel stepped forward. "We were preparing to do that tonight." The officer continued, "There's more. Mr. Carter is considered a person of interest in an ongoing financial investigation. We can't disclose the details, but it would be wise for you to avoid any contact with him." Emily's chest tightened. "Did he say anything? Anything about me?" The officer hesitated. "We received a report from one of his coworkers earlier, someone named Elaine Turner. She told us Mr. Carter made concerning statements about you. Something about not letting you ruin his life." Emily felt the ground tilt slightly beneath her. Sarah's face went pale with fury. "He's spiraling," she hissed. "That confirms it." The officer handed Emily a card. "If he contacts you, comes here, or attempts any communication, call us immediately." Emily nodded, voice barely audible. "Thank you." The officers left, and the door clicked shut behind them. Silence fell, a thick, heavy silence. Daniel exhaled. "This is accelerating faster than I expected." Emily pressed shaking fingers to her temples. "He went after Chloe. He's unraveling completely." Sarah paced the room. "He's dangerous now, not physically but emotionally. A man like him doesn't know how to lose without striking out." Emily swallowed hard. "I didn't want any of this. I just wanted the truth." And now you have it, Sarah said softly. All of it. Even the parts you never wanted. Emily lowered herself onto the couch, head spinning. She felt small, shaken, exhausted, but beneath the fear, another emotion burned brighter. Control. She had control now, not Mark. Daniel took a seat across from her. Emily, I know this feels overwhelming, but everything that's happening, every crack in his behavior, every reckless decision, it all works in your favor. Publicly, legally, financially. Sarah added, you're not the one falling apart. He is. Emily nodded slowly, absorbing their words. She wasn't falling apart. She was witnessing the collapse of a man who had built his life on lies. Still, her voice trembled. What do we do now? Sarah stopped pacing. Now, we protect you, we finish the filings, and tomorrow we take this to the judge. Emily lifted her chin. And Mark? Daniel's expression softened. Mark will face the consequences of his choices. Emily let out a long, shaky breath. Then suddenly, her phone vibrated. She stared at the screen. A video message from an unknown number. Sarah stepped closer. Open it. Emily hesitated, then pressed play. The screen lit up with grainy footage. The camera shook. And then Mark appeared, disheveled, sweating, sitting in the front seat of his Mercedes. His eyes wild. He leaned close to the camera, voice low and venomous. You think you're winning, Emily? You think you can destroy me? Emily's heart slammed against her ribs. Mark leaned in closer. No one destroys me. Sarah grabbed the phone, but not before the final chilling line played. You haven't seen what I'm capable of. Emily's fingers went numb as the video ended. For a long, breathless moment, the room stayed frozen. Sarah staring wide-eyed at the screen, Daniel's jaw tight with alarm, and Emily sitting very still, as if any movement would shatter what remained of her strength. Then Sarah snapped into action. That's it, she said sharply. We're done playing defense. This goes to the judge first thing tomorrow, and the police tonight. Daniel nodded. This video is a threat, clear and documented. Emily swallowed hard, her voice barely steady. Why is he doing this? Why now? Sarah knelt in front of her. Because he knows he's lost. Men like Mark don't handle losing. When everything slips out of their control, they strike out in desperation. But listen to me carefully. His downfall is not your burden. His choices got him here. Emily nodded shakily. I know. I'm just tired. You're allowed to be, Sarah said softly, but you're not alone. They called the police, filed an immediate report, and handed over the video. The officer who arrived assured Emily that the recording, combined with Mark's earlier behavior, strengthened her restraining order request. This will be taken seriously, he promised before leaving. When the door closed, Emily sat on the couch, shoulders trembling. Daniel poured her a glass of water. Drink, he said gently. You need to stay grounded. She took a sip, breath steadying. And somewhere between the fear and exhaustion, a realization began to form, an iron-solid truth inside her chest. She wasn't scared of Mark anymore, not because he wasn't dangerous, but because she wasn't powerless. She wasn't that woman crying in the dark of the apartment while he whispered lies into someone else's ear. She wasn't the woman who blamed herself for his distance, his cruelty, his betrayals. She was the woman who walked into truth and survived it, and tomorrow she would stand in front of a judge and reclaim her life. The next morning, Emily, Sarah, and Daniel arrived at the courthouse again. This time, with evidence, statements, and the chilling video message that left no room for doubt. The judge reviewed everything in silence. After several long minutes, she looked up. Mrs. Carter, given the severity of the threats and the ongoing financial investigation involving your husband, I am granting an immediate restraining order. Emily exhaled, tears filling her eyes, not from pain, but from relief. The judge continued. Additionally, given the financial disclosures and evidence of concealed assets, you are entitled to an emergency freeze on all marital accounts. This includes accounts Mr. Carter attempted to hide. Sarah nodded with satisfaction. Thank you, Your Honor. Emily felt her chest loosen, as if someone had finally lifted a weight she'd been carrying for years. Outside the courtroom, Sarah hugged her tightly. It's over, Em. Legally, emotionally, you're protected now. Emily leaned into the hug, letting herself feel safe, truly safe, for the first time in a long time. Daniel joined them, and the federal investigation will take care of the rest. Mark will face the consequences he earned. Emily inhaled deeply. I didn't want vengeance, just truth. And you got it, Sarah said, all of it. Weeks passed. The investigation widened. Madison cooperated fully, exposing every detail. Chloe testified to Mark's escalating rage. Mrs. Jenkins offered her statement. Emily's sworn documentation sealed the timeline that proved her innocence. Mark's career collapsed. His firm suspended him. News outlets reported financial misconduct and allegations of intimidation. His carefully crafted image shattered into dust. Emily watched from a distance, not gloating, not celebrating, just finally free. She moved into a smaller apartment near Central Park, decorated with warm colors, soft blankets, and shelves of books. She poured herself into healing, therapy, long walks, quiet nights by the window. The silence no longer felt heavy. It felt like peace. One afternoon, while reading on a bench near the lake, she heard a familiar voice. "Emily?" She looked up. Alex Reed, an ER physician she had met briefly at the hospital months ago, stood there holding a coffee, smiling gently. "I heard about what you went through," he said. "I'm sorry, truly. But you look stronger." Emily smiled softly. "I am." They talked for hours about life, resilience, second chances. His presence felt calm, warm, respectful. Nothing like the storm she escaped. And as the sun began to set, Alex hesitated. "Would you like to have dinner with me sometime?" Emily felt her heart stir, not in fear, but in possibility. "Yes," she said, "I would." He grinned, and for the first time in years, Emily felt the future open, wide, bright, and hers. She walked home through the glowing park, breathing easily. Her life was no longer defined by a man who tried to crush her. It was defined by her strength, her courage, her rebirth. And somewhere in Manhattan, Mark faced the full weight of the consequences he created, while Emily stepped into the peace, power, and love she had always deserved. So that's how the story comes to an end. But my friend, you're still here with me, aren't you? If you're listening right now, it means something in Emily's journey touched a quiet place in your heart. Maybe you've lived through disappointment, betrayal, or a moment when life didn't look the way you hoped. And that's okay, truly. Stories like this remind us of something Marcus Aurelius once wrote. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Emily didn't win because her world was perfect. She won because she stopped letting her pain define her. She chose truth. She chose courage. She chose herself. And maybe that's your message today, too. You deserve peace. You deserve honesty. You deserve a life that doesn't hurt to live. Healing isn't loud. It's choosing, every day, not to return to what broke you. Just like Emily, you can rebuild. You can rewrite your story at any moment. If this touched you even a little, let's keep walking this journey together. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, because somewhere out there, someone needs this reminder just as much as you did today.